Okay, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful break and had a lovely treat downstairs or at home or in the office, wherever you are. I hope you've been treated this afternoon. So this afternoon we are going to be turning our attention to what happens when diversity of thought is implemented within our engineering innovations and engineering outcomes through a series of 3 10-minute micro talks. Sadly, our fourth presenter, Jenny McLaughlin, can't be with us today due to a family emergency, and our thoughts and best wishes are with Jenny and her family. Each talk this afternoon has been developed to give us a snapshot of where diversity of thought has supported innovation within a particular engineering specialism. After hearing from our 3 innovators, we'll open for audience questions in a panel discussion chaired by the fantastic Alida Rios, Senior Vice President at BP and Chair of the Royal Academy of Engineering's D&I Committee. As these talks are lightning speed, we will be taking all questions through our online Q&A platform Slido. You can access Slido through the link in the chat or the QR codes on your table. The best part about sessions like these for me is the opportunity to be able to gather ideas and really look behind the scenes at other organisations. The biggest piece of feedback that I get when working with our industry partners is that you're all super keen to know what everybody else is doing. You're a very, very nosy bunch. And today, this afternoon, now is your moment. So please do take notes as we go and fill up your action plans, which are both on your tables and available to download from our webpage. You can add all of the nuggets of best practice that you can take back to your organisations. I'm really excited for us to be able to dive into some examples of great practice this afternoon. So let's get started. We are lucky to be joined by incredible speakers. So we have Andrew Aylesbury from DUCU, Dr Elizabeth Ratcliffe, Senior Lecturer in Biological Engineering at Loughborough University, and Martin Scrogg, Project Technical Leader at Stantec. Before I hand over the stage, let me share a little introduction to Andrew. So Andrew gained years of experience in product design consultancy before founding DUCU in 2013. He has since managed over 400 product design projects with extensive experience in inclusive design. Andrew has recently worked on projects to address accessibility within the electric vehicle charging infrastructure funded by Innovate UK. It's this journey to innovation that he'll be sharing with us today. Please join me in welcoming Andrew to the stage.
Hi everyone. So yes, I'm Andrew Aylesbury, Director of DUCU, and I'm going to talk to you about a project looking at accessibility within EV charging. First, just a quick introduction to us. DUCU is a product design agency established 10 years ago in Cheltenham. Our clients range from startups and entrepreneurs to established businesses. We work within a diverse range of industries, creating everything from dog toys to mountain bikes. So over the years, we've developed a specialism within EV charging infrastructure, working on projects such as the one in the centre here, which is the world's first pop-up charge point for a company called Urban Electric. We've also worked on many projects where improving the usability of the product is a key focus, and this led us to talk about the projects I'm here to discuss today. So we responded to Innovate UK competition to address accessibility challenges in EV charging, as there was a growing concern that the current charging network may not be accessible to all drivers. The grant allowed us to complete an 8-month feasibility study to understand any barriers facing disabled drivers looking to transition to EVs. Working with the RIDC, we completed research that ranged from questionnaires to live user trials with a wide range of stakeholders, including disabled drivers, local authorities and charge point operators. We found there were serious barriers facing disabled drivers who want to transition to EVs. These included charge points that had inflexible, heavy cables or relied on the driver to bring their own charge cable, which was simply not an option for some of the testers due to getting them in and out of the car and carrying them. Also, access to charge points was often restricted by protective barriers or raised curbs that prevent getting close enough to use them if you have a walking aid. So, sorry, lost my place. So instructions and screens were also very badly positioned and difficult to understand for those with hidden disabilities. Currently at petrol stations, disabled drivers may ask for assistance from staff on site. We found there was a real concern moving to EVs as charge points can be in the back corner of a dark car park with no help available, meaning they could not independently charge their car. Our research showed we need to think broadly about this from the way they are installed to how you pay for the charge session and use the charge point, considering both hidden and visible disabilities in our design. Our goal was to create a charge point that any driver could confidently use independently. So we began designing concepts to improve the design in terms of payments, installation, and the user process. But there was one key challenge to overcome that we felt could transform the usability, and that was to make the process a one-handed operation. That would address a theme we had observed in our research, that drivers with limited dexterity or who used a walking aid needed their other hand for support and movement. It also was quickly agreed that we needed to remove all the effort from dispensing it and put the controls into the user's hand. After developing various prototypes in our workshop, we built a demonstrator charge point and invited a diverse group of drivers to come and test it. The video playing shows that early prototype, which included a motorised cable with controls mounted on the plug. Being able to observe our testers using the prototype allowed us to see if the basic idea of motorising the cable actually worked, but also let us try different setups and ideas. For example, different control methods, which we could feed back into the ongoing development. It was also really important to hear from local authorities and charge point operators, as they represent our route to market and are therefore critical to ensuring the design would be adopted. Without the constraints of having to use existing technology or worrying too much about cost and regulations at the start, we ended up with a design that really prioritised the user. In the picture is Helen Dolphin. She is a transport disability advisor who has been involved in our project from the start. Helen is a quadruple amputee who uses both prosthetics and a wheelchair. She's also a driver who relies on her car for work. Until the moment you see in the photo, she didn't believe she would be able to have an EV, so it's great to be able to prove that through design, that needn't be the case. Since this early prototype, we've addressed more pragmatic aspects like cost and durability of the mechanical design, which is obviously very important to make it a viable product, but we were able to do so while maintaining a very clear focus on the functionality that was critical to our users. As the project developed, we began to understand that by focusing on the user, it actually created very transferable technology that we've since been able to apply to other industries, for example, home, marine and depot charging versions that also benefit from the reduced effort and organising the cable. We've also recently secured a license deal on our IP with a large automotive OEM who saw the potential of the technology to create a premium EV charger for their customers who weren't keen on picking muddy cables up off the floor, showing that considering accessibility within a design can actually expand the commercial potential. So what did we learn along the way? Well, the funding allowed us to do really comprehensive research with experts and real drivers, and that certainly had an impact. It allowed us to set clear goals to make this a one-handed operation, for example. We found ways to overcome the technical issues that this threw up, but compromising that goal was never questioned as we all saw what a difference it could make. It's not often you do get the opportunity to start from a clean sheet of paper, but this was one example, and the outcome is truly a result of what we learnt in that original research. Validating the technology in the real world was also really important. We always prioritise making tangible working prototypes to let people engage with the design. It's the only way really to see if the theory of the ideas actually work in practice. CAD and computer modelling really can't tell you everything. For example, a lot of our testers didn't expect the design to be motorised, so pulled on the cable when they wanted to use it. We could then feed that back into the ongoing design and improve the instructions and how it's presented to the user. Finally, we learned that design with inclusivity as a priority is not only how we all know design should be approached, but commercially it's a very sensible strategy, as you normally end up making a product that is better for everyone. And also by doing so, you can end up with a far wider market potential in areas that may not have been on your radar at the start of the project. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. That was incredible. I'm really looking forward to being able to dive a little bit deeper during our Q&A. Thank you, Andrew. Next up, we're going to be moving on to the world of academia. And Dr Elizabeth Ratcliffe, Senior Lecturer in Biological Engineering at Loughborough University, will be sharing her insights from the project they are delivering as part of the Academy's Diversity Impact Programme. The Diversity Impact Programme, or as we lovingly call it, DIP, aims to inspire and change in university engineering departments so that all students succeed and the unique perspectives and experiences of engineers from diverse backgrounds continue to enhance the profession. The Academy has provided grant funding of up to £100,000 for new projects in university engineering departments that address the unequal outcomes experienced by students from underrepresented backgrounds. The need and the solution to the problem are both identified by the university to ensure that the interventions delivered support the growth of the university engineering students in a way that really resonates with them. Elizabeth leads Loughborough's Inclusive Engineering Excellence Hub, funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering and the Vice-Chancellor's Research Cluster in Inclusive Engineering. These initiatives aim to develop knowledge in critical gaps in inclusivity in engineering and develop future leaders with expertise in EDI practices. She has been leading the Diversity Impact Programme project for the University of Loughborough and will be sharing some of the ways diversity of thought has driven their impact. Elizabeth, really welcome to the stage.
Thank you. It's really a great opportunity to be here to speak to you all about what we're doing at Loughborough. Okay, so I'm Liz Ratcliffe. I'm here to talk about our Inclusive Engineering Hub and the projects within it. For those of you that may not be familiar with Loughborough, our campus is over 348 football pitches in size. We have 20,000 staff and students from 100 different countries. And we have over 100 clubs and societies as part of our students' union, and then there are staff societies as well. Of course, it's Loughborough. We are famous for our sport. We have the widest range of sports facilities, and we have over 5,000 students actually calling it home and living on campus. Engineering, I'm being too heavy-handed with the clicker. Engineering is right up at the west end of campus where we're co-located, so that's all engineering departments and disciplines, 25 million investment in STEM lab for laboratory teaching and a further teaching hub. Now this is great for myself as a staff member. I can get to everywhere I need to get really quickly, but all of our student support and societies are centrally located or at the far end of campus. So actually day to day, dropping in within that support is quite difficult and challenging for our engineering students who have very heavy timetables. It was for that reason and the reasons as Rosa has described that we wanted to instill some change in how we work with our engineering students, and we developed the Inclusive Engineering Excellence Hub, and this is about striving for excellence in inclusivity. We're funded by the DIP programme, and it's a dedicated physical space co-located within the teaching environment. So we're surrounded by lecture theatres, and we have this little space that we use for activities and workshops for our students. My co-leads are Dr Laura Justum and Professor Cheryl Williams at Loughborough University, and we have a wide team as well. One of our original projects was called Don't Forget the Mortar, and if we think of our students' modules, they're taught formal modules as the bricks of their learning. How can we provide those mortar experiences that bring their web of learning together and also provide experiences that provide a sense of feeling valued and ultimately, we hope, feeling that they belong in engineering. And we partner with other organisations as well for that transition into engineering industries. We work on the focus that everyone's welcome, so we work very much with an intersectional approach across our activities. These are some of our activities, so they cross engineering, professional skills and self-care, range from Lego Club to robotics clubs. Engineering for health includes empathy labs and niche areas such as bioreactors that our students don't really get to have their hands on, which obviously I'm very passionate about in coming from biological engineering. Programming, career support and mindful art and crafts as well. We are powered by diverse representation. So we are a team of non-academics, non-engineers and engineers. We cross all aspects of protected characteristics and known influences that affect career trajectory in higher education and in engineering. We all have our own lived experiences and we bring this all together because we're passionate in supporting and empowering others. But it's not really about us and it's not really about our voice. Students are at the heart of everything that we do. We fund a diverse pool of student ambassadors and diversity champions that help us co-develop our activities and feedback on everything that we do as key stakeholders. The project completes this summer. We're aiming for a pedagogical publication shortly thereafter, and we've been using mixed method approaches for qualitative and quantitative data. Initial analysis suggests that our physical hub space aligns to the sociocultural third space concept, so a transformative social space that is different from home or work, and that's quite interesting given that it's sitting within a formal workspace within a venue full of lecture theatres. We're showing high levels of diversity in our workshops and activities in terms of underrepresentation and across engineering disciplines, which can be quite siloed when we're getting into our individual programmes and how often students actually spend time with other engineering disciplines. And we're seeing a highly engaged community emerging as well and active returners to our activities. Lots of lessons learned and we're still learning. Time and resource being underestimated in actually doing this in a layered way and building that trust amongst our engineering students that this isn't tokenism and that this actually will hopefully help them in the future. We're also looking to continuously improve and our initial analysis, some further data here. We've been looking at where is exclusion happening now, where is it most prominent for our students, and we're finding that that's more in social interactions, group work. This is all feedback from our students with peers off campus and in halls, to a lesser extent as we would expect in those highly controlled environments, so in exams, in lectures and with staff. And our highest requests for support at the moment are more social activities, but equally more private, quiet spaces and more awareness amongst our staff. We're advancing our work through partnership with societies and industry. And for example, we've been working with Women's Engineering Society this year at Loughborough. We have them at many universities, they're embedded onto campus and it's a peer-led group. This year is the first year since COVID that they've been able to run a full programme of in-person activities throughout the year, and we've essentially been that underpinning support for them so that they can relaunch and then also go out and develop from that, and they're developing their own industry sponsorship. Challenging ourselves at the moment and challenges that we're facing is voicing diverse thought, how there's across different layers within the university, we're seeing that there are preferences for how people engage, preferences for how support is voiced. So actually getting around that and making sure that everyone can still have their voice heard, no matter how they prefer to input. And then also who are we not reaching, who are we still missing, and the concept of the marginalised. Part of the Diversity Impact Programme is to build legacy, so it's funding up to £100,000 and that was in 2022 and completes, as I say, this summer. And it was £65,000. But from that, we need to show how are we taking this forward, because it's very difficult within that initial project to show legacy impact for our students, in terms of exam outputs and the trajectory. And we're building on that. So we're getting external and internal recognition through awards, and we're getting external and internal funding to take this work forward. And that's around about 600k to date. One of those projects that I'm leading is the Inclusive Engineering Vice Chancellor's Research Cluster. So this in total will be around 8 PhDs from October last year through to 2028, and we're really looking at developing future leaders in engineering with EDI expertise applied in research and technology development. The projects aim to deliver change in how we develop inclusive engineering products and services, and I'm just highlighting Tim Apado in the picture there, who's in the room with us, as one of our students, because she'll be on the exhibition later, and it would be great to connect with you on her project, which is an AI-powered mentorship system for women in engineering. There was someone earlier mentioning how they, I think it was Leslie, how they reflect on what they would tell themselves earlier. Well, this is an AI-powered mentorship system to essentially capture that essence for women who are going through higher education engineering and that transition into their first role. So please talk to Timmy. And then there's some of the other projects that are ongoing at the moment, and we also have projects being advertised as well. And just finally, we ran this event about 3 weeks ago, and this is just an example of how we're trying to harness the power of diverse thought, but in a multi-layered approach. So Flora Bower is on the right-hand side in the red jacket, left-hand side in the red jacket, and she is a rising star in this space, and she is the founder of Future Minds. She's also a current Loughborough student, and she's coping with exams and coursework deadlines, whilst also developing events for students and young people in the EDI space. And we collaborated with Flora and supported her on this event, and we're working with her in future as well. And our support is really, it's not just funding, it's hands-on, it's co-development of activities, it's staff time, it's student time, and it's how we generate feedback, how we're going to analyse the data, everything from every level. So we're supporting Flora to then be able to lead on this event, and this event is peer-to-peer. So this is Flora, not academics coming in and taking over an event. This is Flora leading the event for other students like her at a key moment when they're thinking about applying for placement or graduate employment opportunities. And it was Loughborough University's first collaboration with Amazon, importantly in the EDI space. And there's a real demand for this. We had to close the sign-up form, and we're looking at further events. Amazon then overlaid with their unique perspectives and their unique support as well. It included a tour of Amazon London headquarters, networking sessions, a panel discussion with 5 of their staff, and 3 interactive breakouts. And this included activities for students to do on the day, but also in the week after. It was takeaways as well. So it was really fantastic, concerted effort to foster inclusion. The impact on the day, there was short-term impact. It was fantastic. The feeling in the room was amazing. Longer term, we will have access to placement and graduate recruitment, and we hope to run similar events like this as well. We will have a video playing in the exhibition if you want to come and see that as well, and that's our students talking about the event rather than myself. But thank you for the opportunity. It's been a really great day. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Elizabeth. The amount of thought that's gone into ensuring collaboration with students at every single stage is phenomenal, and I think kind of that's what really helps to ensure that those outcomes are going to be as inclusive as possible for students. So that's fantastic. Thank you. So we're now going to turn to our final talk for the afternoon before we head into our panel and Q&A. So next up we have Martin Scragg, Project Technical Leader at Stantec, and he's going to be sharing key projects which have been led with community in mind. Martin is an accomplished civil engineer and Project Technical Leader at Stantec, a global firm providing engineering and design solutions for various industries. Over 20 years, Martin has led a diverse range of complex projects within the water industry, including clean water, wastewater and water networks. Martin also chairs the Neurodiversity Network at Stantec and will be sharing his insights on projects from across the organisation. Welcome to Martin.
So, firstly, thank you. thank you for this opportunity to be here. When I was 20, I could barely answer the telephone for stuttering. So it's pretty amazing that 30 years later, I'm stood here. So I'm quite proud of myself. Picture the scene. I am Dad's taxi, and most mornings I'm taking my eldest and my youngest to university and school. The youngest does all the talking, and he's age 16, autistic, as is my eldest. This morning he said to me, "Dad, why are you going into London again?" He said, "I can't remember, you're going to do a talk or something." And I said, "I'm going to talk about harnessing the power of diverse thought." His immediate response was, "So what, you're going to get a bunch of neurodivergent people and just plug them into the dark web?" And I went, "No. No, not really." And he said, so what is it about then, harnessing the power of diverse thought? So I flipped it, and I'm driving, and I asked him. And he said, "Well, it's simple, isn't it?" He said, it's like Matrix, the film, and Chicken Run, the film, are essentially the same film, even though you would not think it. It's because you basically got two groups of people that are trying to harness resources from people for different outcomes. So I liked that different, diverse thought of his, and I wanted to share that with you this morning. Not in my slides, but I just kind of liked the way that he was speaking there. So I'm Martin Scragg, and I wanted to share with you this story. I like the power of stories. Picture the scene. I'm 7 or 8 years old, and my mother asked me to go and buy £2 of mints. Now, I knew that Mum liked extra strong mints because there was always a bag in the car. You can see where this is going. You know, you're filling in the gaps. So I wander off down the street. It's not very far with my money. Walked to the sweet shop, and I said, "Can I have £2 of mints?" And she looked at me and she knew me. And she said, "Martin, are you sure about that?" I said, "Yeah, Mum really likes mints." And then I'm thinking, well, maybe she meant £2 of mints. But then I thought, no, I won't say anything. So she dutifully gives me the £2 of mints. I carry them home. And now all the while I'm thinking, mints or mints? Mints? No, mints. I'm not sure. Anyway, I get home. Mum falls about laughing and says, "Mince meat, Martin." Mince meat for the mince pies that she was making that Christmas. Now, it's a funny story, I know, but I wanted to share it because in the last few years I've realised that I am autistic also. I self-diagnosed from the back of my kids being officially diagnosed. I take everything literally. I don't know when people are joking. I find it really hard. And I had to tell my colleagues, I am joking. So if you're talking to me later, please keep it straight. Don't put any innuendo, anything in there that I have to read between the lines. Oh, and that's another funny story. My daughter, when she was trying to learn to read, was asked to read between the lines, and she said, "But there's nothing between the lines." So a little bit more about me. At my core, I'm a civil engineer. I work mostly in the water industry and have done for about the last 20 years with most of the UK water companies, including Northern Ireland Water, South Island Water, and a bit abroad as well. I'm currently the leader of technical teams in Southern Water currently, and as you know, in the news there's lots of spills and so on, so I'm trying to help reduce that. Other hats I wear, as I mentioned, I'm a dad of 2 autistic children. I'm a project manager, technical reviewer, trainer, tutor, chair of the Neurodiversity ERG, which I'll come on to at the end, all for Stantec UK, coffee lover, the coffee here is good, and therapist plus more. I'm here because I'm really passionate about inclusion, especially for those who are neurodivergent. So I'm going to talk briefly about some projects that others have worked on and some that I've worked on, so I can talk about those a little bit more personally. And there's so many. One of Stantec's straplines is community in mind, or rather design with community in mind. So I'm hopefully going to be able to show you some of where we've implemented that. This is a park area that has now been refurbished just to the west of Manchester in Salford. Initially, the concept plans that were given to our landscape architects were thrown in the bin because they were not inclusive The park in the middle that you can maybe just sort of make out was the stereotypical park that favoured boys, really, and wasn't very inclusive at all. There was still this massive mound in the middle, which made it very unsafe. So the guys got to work and worked with a number of local stakeholders and charities to help them redesign this space from an area which was prone to people using drugs and fly tipping and so on, to now it is a vibrant park that people use from across the community. This is a little bit closer to home for me. These two projects I worked on. Brighton, of the two pictures that are shown there. The one at the top corner is a 3D angled, sort of 3D representation of the final completion of the works. We moved Brighton's sewage works from Brighton to Peacehaven, which, if you know the south coast at all, it's about 15, 20 kilometres along the coast. It was a massive project, one of the most epic projects I've worked on. But again, the concept design that we received, that sort of oval shape that you see there, which is the footprint of the works, was a stainless steel spaceship, for want of a better word. It didn't blend in at all, so we started again. And the grass roof that's on the top of it, which is a living roof, was at the time one of the biggest grass roofs in the UK. From the road, you can't see it. All of the smelly bits are covered, and I always remember one of the strap lines at the beginning of the project around from Peacehaven to Poo Haven. But working with the communities, we brought them round, and then they became advocates for what we designed. Chichester, Chichester, if you know it at all, is again on the south coast, and the sewage works discharges out into the harbour. And just to use the pointer, just there is a little rectangular box, which, because of contaminated ground, had to be built 6.5 metres up in the air. So again, with local stakeholders, you could walk along that path and see a concrete eyesore. So I came up with the idea of spraying it with yogurt, and it worked. So we fast-tracked the mould growth on that concrete wall, so that now when you're walking along, I mean, now that a lot of trees have grown as well, but initially they were concerned about seeing this whitish grey monolith concrete structure that was benefiting the harbour because it was treating the sewage to a better quality, but it was the concern about the fact that it was going to be an eyesore. So we came up with an idea, and the contractor went with it and did it, and they sprayed it with yogurt and fast-tracked the mould, which was good. Next project, this is ongoing. We're working with Bristol City Council. There are different ideas within the area to create quiet and tranquil spaces. So what we've suggested is that we can bring all that together to essentially provide a map or an online map that gives places for people to go who are neurodivergent and need that space, that time out. So that is an ongoing project, talking with Bristol City Council. Finally, the Neurodiversity ERG, of which I am chair for Stantec UK, we formed about 3 years ago. It was a like-minded group of individuals who really wanted to have a voice. There was a couple of people who were dyslexic, a couple of people who had children who were autistic, and so on and so on. And we created this ERG, which has gone from strength to strength. In the company, there's 30,000 employees worldwide, I think, and we've now got 6 ERGs globally because of what we started here. And it was just so refreshing to be able to have a voice to be heard. And the differences that we have made, we've launched the ERG, we've ensured that we have a representative on all of our office refurbs. So we've just refurbed the Manchester office, we've done the Birmingham office, and slowly but surely, as well as thinking about access for less able people to get into the building, we're making it a better space for people who are neurodivergent. And we've done all kinds of different things. We provide sort of quiet areas dimmable lights in rooms, easy spaces for people to navigate, etc. We also use inclusion moments in a lot of our meetings. Now, I think a lot of companies do that, but it's something that we've really focused on with regards to neurodiversity, and I'll show you that in the next slide. We helped found neurodiversity in business as a founder member, and we've also got a growing sort of list of enablements, really, or accommodations for people who need some assistance and identify as dyslexic, have ADHD, have autism, etc., etc. And we've recently been given the Neurodiversity Smart Award from Lexic, who we're working with, and they've sort of rubber stamped as we are committed. So that's sort of their first level towards actually doing something in the company to benefit people who are neurodivergent. Then this is the last slide. Probably can't see it too well, but it's just to explain it. The brain in the middle obviously represents a neurodiversity, and then all around it you've got different types of neurodiversity, so delayed language development, dyscalculia, Tourette's, dyslexia, and so on. And rather than it being a bunch of negatives, around the edge in green is all a bunch of positives that are often found with people who are neurodivergent. So this is one of our inclusion moments for people to freely share in meetings, to hopefully then spread and make people aware of what we are trying to do as a company. A few of those positive moments around would be like deep focus or visualization. So that earlier talk where there's a picture of the apple, the apple on the far right hand side, that's me. I can just picture it in the detail, but not everyone can do that. So thank you once again. I could have talked forever about lots of projects, but yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. What a fantastic day it's been so far, right? Great real world examples. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Andrew. So just as a reminder, we said for this talk, we were going to use the Slido. So get your questions in. That includes people here in the audience, but also online. So I have a few questions of my own, because these are real life examples of how you can incorporate diversity of thought into products and into the work we do. And this is super, super important right now, because these are pioneers in innovation, honestly. And one of the things I've learned is to get really, really new ideas, you require innovation. And we're facing some of the biggest engineering problems of my lifetime anyway. In my day job, I'm the Senior Vice President of Engineering at BP. So I can't tell you that every day I worry about the energy transition and we've got to do to this world. So that's why it's super important that we take these real life examples and start to incorporate them in the way we design, and then the way we all engineer what society needs from us. So I'm super interested. So I have a couple questions of my own first, and then I'm going to turn over to the questions from the audience. But one of the things that I always worry about is when we start to think of diversity of thought and putting that innovation into our work, there's always barriers. And we've talked about some of this right now, but in your experiences in developing your products, what were some of those barriers you had to overcome, and maybe giving us some real examples of how you did that? Anybody can start.
So I can start. I would say in academia, we're kind of more on an upwards curve where there are still many barriers. And I've seen huge strides in the last few years. There's still a lot of resistance. As an institution, Loughborough, we have a Pro-Vice Chancellor for EDI. We have this structure coming through. It's a strategic theme, is vibrant and inclusive communities. So in terms of the organisation, it's coming through. And the structures are being put into place. In those individual departments, it's still a very mixed picture. There's still quite a lot of resistance, and that there's still there's still quite a long way that we need to go, but there has been a massive strides, I'd say, even in the last 2 years, and we are on more of an upwards curve.
Yeah, you're certainly putting in place some real examples for each of the departments to follow, and I really do think we need to steal more from each other. Yeah. Andrew?
I guess in my world, it's about balancing factors such as cost, production costs, supply chains. It's more on the kind of engineering side, I guess, and just engineering challenges within trying to create what you're trying to make. And I think on the engineering side, it's just about having a process in your company to work through problems and overcome them. When it comes to cost, if a feature of a product adds a tangible benefit, that's when I think you have to work to explain the kind of added value of your product. So our charger, for example, it has more inside, it's more complicated than other chargers, but it can transform the usability, and companies or organisations like the Motability Group, there are ways to kind of subsidise extra cost for people that need technology. So it's, I guess, about understanding who that user is and making sure that people understand the added value it brings.
Oh yeah, I really like the way that you brought the user into the equation very early before, and I think you said you didn't worry about cost first.
Nope.
But then later, now, once you've got I felt like once you had the buy-in from the users, then you started to incorporate the cost.
It was kind of a luxury for us because
Right.
it was we didn't have a client. It was an in-house project, and we had a fund to start us off. So cost was low down on that agenda, but the starting and working with the users was critical. Like you need a lot as well. You really need to have a diverse cross-section. You can't have a small control group and just that's the brief.
Yeah.
And I think the other surprising thing from a design point of view is when you engage with disabled users, customers, they're such capable people because they encounter bad design all the time. They will tell you straight away what's going to work and what won't. It's often the people that have forgotten their reading glasses, or we had a chap who was one of our early testers who had just hurt his back, dropped the cable when he was going through the process and couldn't pick it up, and he's completely stumped then. And it's designing for people who maybe aren't aware of the barriers that they might face that can be much more challenging.
Very, very great examples. Martin?
Barriers for me have all been internal, because for me, I'm blessed to work with people who think differently, but it's persuading these people that they do think differently in the first place, and that they do have diversity of thought, and they just see it as their job. So the 2 water projects examples that I shared there were numerous other innovations that actually came about as a result of those projects that have changed the water industry as a whole going forward. You talk to individuals involved and they're just like, I'm just doing my job. But actually the barrier, and it's still there, is that self-belief, or rather not self-belief, that actually they're thinking any differently because that's just the way they think.
Yeah.
So it's trying to persuade them, actually, no, you do think differently, and this is the reasons why.
Yeah, I love that. I love your projects. Oh my gosh, fantastic. Well, I've got several coming in, and one of the things that I just realized is I didn't bring my reading glasses, but that's okay. I can bring it up a little closer to me. But so I love the first question, and by the way, it's based on likes. So also, if you have questions you'd like, please go online and like them. I love the ERGs, but how does it work? Does it work in a small company? I think Martin, you spoke about your work in ERGs, but
Yeah.
does it work in a small company?
I think it would work in a small company. I say that because I've done it in a big company, but I think it would still work in a small company because it's about getting people that are passionate together. And when we started the ERG 3 years ago, it was just 4 or 5 of us, but wanted to get together to talk, to try and influence the company as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, it would work with a smaller company. It could be 2 or 3 people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I happen to work in a big company, and they have massive impact in big companies as well. So I do think the power of the ERGs, the power of that voice, the power of that lived experience is something we should all harness and really value. But Liz or Andrew, any thoughts from you? Maybe in university.
Yeah, I was really fascinated with your talk, and there's certain groups coming through into certain new societies. So, for example, parents of neurodiverse children, I'm a member of that, and these are just coming online in the last kind of 6 months. And some of the learnings that we could cross into universities and academic settings, I think. I was really interested.
And I have now my glasses. Thank you. Thank you, Rosa. Okay, so many of the panelists spoke about their own experience of inclusion. How can we inspire people who may not have lived experiences to really care about DE&I, get involved and put resources towards innovative solutions, such as yours? How do we inspire that?
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
It depends on the people you're talking to. I think if you're talking to very senior leaders in a business, generally money will talk.
Say more.
If you can prove that there is a financial benefit to doing something, then they'll be interested, and then they'll listen to everything else. Okay. So it depends on your audience as to who you are talking to. There has to be a clear benefit, or else why would anybody bother?
But benefit isn't always maybe money.
It's not always money, no.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on how do you inspire?
I think my team are designers, and I think with creative people, they enjoy the challenge, they enjoy problem solving, so it's less difficult, I think, to inspire those people. But as you were saying, when you, as a consultancy, when we're working with companies, you've kind of got to get their buy-in to what you're trying to do for them.
Yeah.
And then it is about finding what their kind of business priorities are and putting it into words maybe that they can understand, and then they can start to come on board.
Yeah.
And that can really help.
One of the hats I wear in the company is trainer, and I will lead technical teams and train them how to run projects. One of the specific topics I talk on is emotional intelligence. And initially, to get a bunch of engineers and scientists interested in emotional intelligence, I took something from another speaker I found on the internet who had taken the periodic table and put weights to different emotions on the periodic table. That got their interest. And then I was able to talk about emotional intelligence. So it's just trying to make stuff relevant to people.
Yeah.
If I just went in and started talking lots of text on the screen, they'd just switch off.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. I mean, knowing your audience and what's relevant.
Always, yeah.
Always. I have another question now, following up on the ERGs that I'd like to pose. Can ERGs work effectively without allocated budget? What is the most important factor in ensuring their success? What's your experience? Can they be successful without any budgets?
I guess it depends on the size of the organisation.
It does.
To be honest.
It does. At the moment, we, as a company, have very small budgets for people in the ERG to come along and do things.
Yeah.
I think there has to be that balance. I know of other companies that have enormous budgets, but then people listen to them talk and they listen to us talk, and they say that we're miles apart.
Yeah.
And that's because of getting those right people in the right place at the right time. Saying that, I think our budget could be bigger, but
Yeah.
knowing this is recorded, I'm not going to say any more.
No.
Yeah, I think I just echo that really, in that I think it's also about making every penny count, every pound count. We're on kind of small budgets ourselves where we're working at the moment, but we are now because we've shown what we're doing, we're now in talks for institutional support. So we're now in a position where we can go to the university as a whole and talk about this as an EDI case study. So it's about making every opportunity count.
I love that. I just, my own experience is ERGs are usually volunteers.
Yes.
They're very passionate volunteers, like many of you here are in this conference, and you make a lot of difference just from the passion and
We have to be reined in every now and then.
Yes, I'm familiar with that too. Okay. Okay. So I have another question. Liz, maybe this one is for you because it says, with students, Are you making progress with the curriculum to thread inclusion into critical thinking in the design process? Ooh, that's a great one.
That's a brilliant one. Yeah. So we are doing a review of the curriculum, and that's applied across all of our engineering disciplines. And in terms of critical thinking within the design process, I wouldn't say we're fully there yet, but we are looking at ways we can improve inclusion in that way. I'd say at the moment it's sitting more in the academic side rather than actually using that student voice and talking to students as well and talking to end users. It's more of an academic project at the moment, but it's heading in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, how about in product development?
I've definitely seen a shift, a trend towards more inclusion. I've seen a large number of portfolios in my time, and there's often, in fact, I'm sure Loughborough, I think they do an entire kind of module about inclusive thinking and accessibility. But you can apply that methodology to so many different products. Ultimately, if you engage with a product and you use it, you need to think about it. So there's definitely a thread through like product design and what's being taught.
Yeah, I definitely think systems design, thinking on many aspects is really, really important. Okay, I've got another one that's got significant likes here for Dr. Ratcliffe. All right, so how do we address the barriers placed in the way of neurodivergent individuals who have the desire and smarts to do research but cannot meet the demands of academic life, such as applying for grants and self-promotion and networking?
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. There was a parent of a neurodiverse child, parent of an autistic child and a dyslexic child, and on that pre-diagnosis pathway for myself, self-diagnosed, I do not have a complete answer to that question because that's essentially describing the difficulties, the challenges that I faced myself. Yeah, Martin, you also mentioned, challenges.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Really, well, it was raised to address the barriers in place for neurodivergent individuals where they're really smart, have a lot of desire, but in sometimes the barriers that can't overcome because of in this case it was academic life, but and applying for grants and self-promotion and networking. So basically, just because of the way that they see the world, the way they interact with the world, it just makes it very difficult in that sense. And since you said you had children, I was just wondering if we can expand it beyond.
I understand now. I certainly see that with my son. He stereotypically is awesome at maths and finds written English incredibly difficult. We've just found out recently in the last few months, if he has his exams questions presented to him on deep purple paper, he can read it in his own time. And it's just finding that sort of trial and error. So that was one barrier. Don't put black text on white background. So now there's a battle with schools to get exams printed on purple paper. It's a simple thing, but that's something that suits him. Ironically, the standard is to give him extra time in exams. He doesn't need extra time. What he needs is a quiet space. He sits there for half an hour at the end because he's done the exam. It's not time. It's the environment. It's the things that he interacts with that actually make the difference for him.
I think there's just, I personally think a whole conversation around better understanding, better research, better tools, and just awareness of what those are is really, really important for all of us.
I asked both kids last night, what's the barrier to you as two autistic people? And they said, the barrier and the worst thing is when people assume that you can get through stuff. And actually, sometimes you can't. And it's just rubbish. And it's really hard. And sometimes you just want to curl up and not say anything to anybody for hours because that's the way they're going to get through it.
My son is autistic and he walks around with a book so that he can just shut everybody out when he needs to. and others don't understand that. Yeah, go ahead,
So
Liz.
just coming back in
Yeah.
on that, so in
Yeah.
terms of that environmental support, in terms of the support that we put in place for students, because the question was initially about students, but then it moved into research and
Yeah.
career trajectory. We do all of that for our students, but I would say there is a lag and a delay in higher education in terms of students go through once you've got a diagnosis and you kind of cling on to that, and once you're figuring out the different things that do help, and then students enter university and there's a lack of communication and there's a delay in actually them getting through our processes and having those supports that they need in place. There can be delays there, and there can be issues because students have to go through that all over again at the point of entering university. So that's a challenge, but once it's in place, we do all of that. But then when you're moving into career and the academic game and funding and things like that, it's lots of things. For example, tea earlier today is overwhelming, but equally as a researcher, I'm squandering my opportunity to talk to all of these amazing people. Yet I needed time to come and just sit and quietly have a cup of tea.
Yeah, it's great examples. I've got another one that has got a lot of likes and is pretty relevant. How can we ensure that, the laptop just went dead, so I will remember it. But it basically said, how can we ensure the diversity, I'll paraphrase, ensure that diversity for both a workforce that is on the shop floor, is that we're just as inclusive on providing that diversity to those that are office-based. And I'm sorry if I didn't get the full gist of that question, but that was the general question. And to be honest, because I work in an engineering organization that has both, this is really, really relevant to a lot of our engineering organizations. We have constructions, and I know, Andrew, you in particular with your design, you must have had the same thing. But how do we make sure that diversity is inclusive in all aspects? Inclusion occurs at all aspects, shop floor, office-based.
I guess on the shop floor, there's probably a lot of assumption about capability and so on, which is not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
Whereas in the workplace, it's probably an area that's been looked at in more detail, I would expect. So, yeah, it's a good question, actually. I think the workplace, there's probably more, there's health and safety, but I think in terms of encouraging people
Yeah, here you go. Yeah.
who, where accessibility is important,
Yeah.
and looking at a more kind of inclusive environment, there's probably a lot more work to do in that space.
And it also asked about ERGs. ERGs tend to focus a lot on office space, the work of ERGs, I should say. But so how do we address that for shop floor construction, out in that particular, any other thoughts about that? Because I'll be honest, in my own company, I'm not sure that our ERGs are doing that much to address the lived experience of the front line.
I guess, sorry.
Any other?
I was just going to say, I think it's harder. In my world, the shop floor would be the construction site.
Yeah. It's my world.
But saying that, a lot of tier one contractors that I'm working with actually have really stepped up their game, I think, in the last few years. And I was very surprised that actually there are forums for people to talk. It's just there isn't the space. So when you're out building something, you're monitoring somebody else building, you're being safe, you're watching your environment. So you don't have that as much time as somebody in an office would. So it's just, I think it's making sure that people are given that time. I don't know whether they do or not, but I'm starting to see that might be the case.
Yeah, very good. Go ahead.
I think also getting an outside view in to organisations is quite important, because I think often people on the shop floor, they don't want to be the person that's being seen to raise an issue or point something out. But bring an organisation in that kind of is specialists within that area, just to observe and look for kind of opportunities. And I think there's lots of good examples in things like car manufacturing, where they've been able to not only make the process easier for their workforce, but actually then shaves 5 minutes off the production line. So it's a valuable thing
Great
to do.
example. Yeah,
I
great
just
example.
thought of a funny example.
Ergonomics, and there's all kinds of different things on inclusion that we could benefit from. I've got it working again, and I did a pretty good job, by the way, those of you that are looking at that on paraphrasing that one. But anyway, if I missed it, apologies. I'm going to go move on to the next one that's got quite a few votes. Here's a great question. How do you manage the risk of the diversity tax on the voluntary ERG members? Diversity tax.
I
haven't heard that terminology, but I can
I
guess
wonder
what it
whether
means.
that means the stress, the strain that the people
Yeah.
nods here. Okay, the stress, the strain that the volunteers are put under. I think it's not to be underestimated. I found that it's. I'm struggling to put the words in now, but I just think it's not to be underestimated. I think people put in extra and above, and then above again. And so therefore we need to make sure that they don't burn themselves out in doing something that is mostly voluntary.
How do we value it? I mean, at the end of the day, we should all be valuing that time spent on ERGs and...
I think that probably is similar to what the last kind of discussions were around. That's probably got to come from the top.
Yeah.
Organisations need to prioritise it, and that needs to be in their kind of culture, really.
That's right.
I think that's the way it should
Tone
be.
from the top? Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the more we talk about it as well, again, the hearing about it here today, and then it's starting to come through in my organisation, actually valuing the time and actually recognising that there's diversity fatigue is just starting to come through. And I think the more we talk about it, then the more it will be
I
valued as well.
just thought of an example. In a meeting I was in about 6 months ago, I said to somebody, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop because my brain's full. And that was the best way I could describe it, because they were talking and I couldn't hear anything of what they were saying.
Would you like to work with Martin? I mean, Martin, that's fantastic. I think we need to all kind of be able to, you know, be that person that kind of points out, you know.
But I've only found that in the last few years that I've been
Okay.
I've had the confidence to be able to do that. And so that's what I'm trying to inspire in younger people coming into the company, that actually they have that space to be able to say that. For example, if somebody is dyslexic, the last thing they want to be is the person taking notes, quite probably,
Yeah.
speaking generally. But, you know, as another example.
And
So
as
they
a
need to
woman, I
have-
refuse to take notes anymore.
Exactly, you know.
And this
Yeah.
is something I raised in my talk about group work as being one in university setting and education setting, group work, and actually having the confidence to discuss with your peers when you're just working with them on a group project. You may be, you know, in a few weeks' time working on another group project, to constantly be exposing yourself and your vulnerabilities and not sure how it will be accepted. It's a particular problem among students in group work that we find.
All right, thank you very much. Now we have a question that's about project management. How do you manage projects if they don't go well without losing people's investment and support in inclusion and innovation? Oh my gosh, yes, especially since all of you are working on projects that really at the core are about inclusion.
Yeah.
And how do you, if they don't go well, if they fail? And I'm sure you've experienced that. You're all pioneers in innovation, so.
So this question is what we do.
Yes. So how do you manage projects if they don't go well, without losing people's investment and support for the inclusion and innovation where you're trying to get through your projects?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So assuming then, I guess, that by focusing on that, that's been a factor in why the project has kind of taken longer or whatever.
Yeah. Well, just let's just say it didn't go well, so therefore they threw away
Yeah.
all that
I
you were
mean,
trying to do.
It's often said that it's often those projects that are a failure or don't succeed that you learn the most from. And I think for organisations, and even things like the R&D tax scheme, they're set up to kind of allow people to trial things and test things and fail fast and learn from it and then go again. And again, it's kind of a culture thing in businesses, I think, that isn't a bad thing necessarily. Yeah, okay, you might have spent some money and time. You probably learn a lot, and then you can apply that in a slightly different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Just you learn about things that were potentially hidden, whether there were things that you just weren't looking at, weren't aware of before, but you learn about things that were potentially hidden that you can then tackle in future. But also, given the people who are working on these projects, and again, it's voluntary and things happen, I've found that actually just slowing down, allowing people to input when they can there's no judgment, this is a voluntary group, this is trying to get to a particular end point, and if we have to take a bit longer to get to that end point, ensuring that person can still contribute, can still be part of that conversation, rather than the project is going a little bit south and we need to regroup and we need to think about who can we get on board to really push this forward. It's actually, why is it going south, and why, and is it a resource
The learnings,
issue?
yeah. Mm-hmm. Martin?
So many projects in my brain that I could share. I think it's about being brave. I think it's about definitely about being brave. There's one project I'm working on with Southern Water where I came onto the project and had to say this is not going to work, and then give the reasons why, and that upset a few people. But in terms of inclusion and diversity, it was then making sure we wrote everything down. I think as engineers, we like to think we can hold it all in our heads, but we can't.
Yeah.
And we just, typically, I think across the organisations, we don't write enough down. We think we do, but we don't write enough. So project descriptions and project write-ups, for me, are just so important.
Yeah.
Even if they go wrong, or especially if they go wrong. Because they'll either go wrong against cost, time, or quality. And if it's all three, then, wow, you need to do a big write-up.
Yeah, it's so important that we focus on capturing the learnings and then pivoting and getting to the next better solution.
Yeah.
I think with that, I mean, I think in my company anyway, the problem is we're not harnessing and encouraging failure from a learning standpoint. So anyway, I don't believe you can have innovation without lots of learning.
So on the subject of being brave, I think it's brave enough as a leader to be able to recognise an individual or group of individuals in your team that are operating in a different way, and you recognise that. So they may be staring out the window doing nothing, but in their head they're doing something.
Yeah.
And rather than berating them, we encourage it.
Yes. Well, there's a whole lot more questions. So I really want to apologize because we're out of time. But I wanted to say a huge thank you to Martin, Liz, and Andrew for their real world examples and for their contribution to the conference. I think that's the end of our Q&A. I think I'll ask a round of applause for our guests here. And a plug for both online and for those here, the exhibition later this afternoon will also have examples of their products and how they develop in their teams. So I encourage us to look at that online and also stay for the exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And then I was just asked to bore you for a few seconds to just, first of all, that was amazing. The whole day has been amazing from my perspective. And just a few things from me that have resonated. I get the privilege and the pleasure to work with Joanna and with Rosa and with the Royal Academy's D&I team and all the great work they do. And this conference has always been one of my favorite things to come to for a number of years. But what really has resonated for me in this conference so far, and I'll just take a couple of snippets, but talent focus. I mean, cognitive diversity, when we began, the discussion was really about the talent and the impact that talent can have in your organizations. And my organization was really fantastic, really resonated for me, and more of that talent is what we need. But we need to make sure that our environments are inclusive enough for that talent to really flourish. Be curious. Oh my gosh, curiosity. That's something that today has been all over the place. I'm so curious and learning and understanding and taking action. Flexible for everyone. Everything we do in this space actually is good for all of us, and I really believe that. Inclusive-led versus diversity-led. has really resonated with me. One thing that I've written down in my own action, when my board is down there, I've got so much actions. I really try to, I'm sure some of my team is here and I'm sure they're going to say one action. But anyway, so one action I've taken away is flexibility for everyone. Sometimes we tend to make flexibility available only and define it in the way that I need it or the way that somebody else needs it, but we just need to stick with the flexibility frame for everyone. Hopefully the micro talks were really fun for you, because I think that the way that what I benefit from the most in the exhibition will be later today as well, is real life examples, real ways that people have gotten through the barriers, real ways that they've overcome and that impact and come up with solutions to pressing challenges. I love the EV example, but many of what I've heard today is real life examples. So I'll encourage us all to take action. You all have the little boards and the little table frames for that. Take an action, even for yourself or for your organization, because I think the only way we can make diversity sustainable is with this inclusion mindset that really is talking about everyone. And cognitive diversity has to be part of that. My own son is autistic and on the spectrum, and he is got an amazing career with a company that's really harnessing that, and I'm stealing everything from them. So today, I'll just encourage you. I'm now going to turn it over to Larissa Suzuki, who's here. She came really far, and it's soon to be having a baby, so I'm really excited about that. Sorry if I mention it, but I think it's obvious. And alongside being an AI and space engineer at the University College of London and NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory as well, I also get the privilege that she sits on the Academy's D&I committee, and I get the privilege of having all her great insight. But we're all going to get the privilege of hearing her threads through today's day and her closing remarks. Thank you all for participating. A huge shout out to the Royal Academy D&I team. I could not thank you enough for curating this day for us. And then I'm just going to turn it over to Larissa. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. It has been really a pleasure to see so many familiar faces here. I'm truly honored to stand before you as we are concluding this inspiring annual Diversity and Inclusion Conference. And we are exploring this year the harnessing the power of diverse thought. And this is so important to me because I am a neurodiverse engineer. So as it was said, I work at UCL and NASA JPL. I'm also a senior technical director at Google Office of the CTO. And as a neurodiverse person, I have been diagnosed with ASD, with ADHD, with dyspraxia, dyslexia, everything you can imagine. And I have the big combo in there. But that has really helped me to become an engineer in the way that I felt like empowered by each one of the main characteristics and traits of myself. And I tried to use one advantage of one, superpower of one, to help me to compensate on what was missing on the other part of me. And today has been a day of rich discussions and profound insights, and I'm very grateful to be here with you guys again. So let's try to put together everything that we have seen this day. So we delved into the multitude and richness of diverse thought, especially within engineering, recognizing this as a dynamic system fueled by interconnected ideas and perspective. We explored the concept of cognitive diversity, understanding the importance of creating space for all kinds of minds, and also regardless of their unique wiring. One thing we have to always remember is that when we talk about neurodiversity, we're talking about a spectrum. So people are very different. What might work for somebody might not work for somebody else, because we're talking about the brain, the most powerful thing there is. And we have a different wiring of our brain, different things that we might need as help might not necessarily help somebody else. That's why we are very unique. And the key word and key secret I have learned growing up as a neurodiverse person and also setting up ERGs and helping many communities is do not make any assumptions about anybody's capability, what they need. That's why we have to make this concept and this subject so light for us to talk, to explore, to not be afraid of asking questions, and also to make people comfortable to self-identify themselves, to ask for help. Otherwise, people might just feel like they're going to be seen as one of the weirdos, as I thought of myself, and not ask for help. And that would not necessarily help other people in the same situation. So the non-assumption and understanding different brain setup is something that is quite important. And we confronted here today several biases seeking to dismantle the barriers that hinder fair and equitable decision-making processes. Through it all, we witnessed how diversity of thought act as a catalyst for innovation, driving positive outcomes, especially in the engineering world. And without it, we cannot really do what the Academy of Engineering is planning on doing, supporting the diversity agenda. And also, without taking this into account, we cannot really create a sustainable society, an inclusive economy that will work for every single individual. And I like to look at how business traditionally have seen us. Like, businesses traditionally have seen us as kind of puzzle pieces, but we all have different irregularities. But people don't want to put them together, take the time to put them together. They want to trim away and make us perfect rectangles and put us all together. That might be a good shortcut, a band-aid in the short term, but when you trim away those irregularities, you are actually throwing away so much of what people can offer and make a big difference and bring something innovative to help you create new businesses, new solutions, and to help us to prosper and have a better society. So everything that we do in terms of like inclusion, we have to make those with everyone in mind so that no one feel they have to check parts of themselves at the door, because that is really not what will really trigger innovation. And to value our differences, one thing that I learned is that we must first embrace ourselves, our identities, and our very own differences so that we can see what it is that is different from us and others, so that we can start embracing the differences that other people also bring. And also identify parts of us that overlap. So think about yourself now and describe the words that describe who you are. You are not just a thing from a place. For instance, I am a neurodiverse woman. I love computers, machine learning, and robots. I'm the middle child, and I'm fascinated about lists. Since I was a kid, I have bucket lists for everything. And I also love buckets of coffee on a daily basis. So I'm just more than one thing. And I'm pretty sure all of you are the same. So we have those multiple identities. And the more we understand our own identities, the more we will understand those who we should bridge connections. And that is the main idea, to bridge connections and to stop the othering and create more of a sense of belonging. Because belonging, again, no one has to check themselves at the door. And the connections that we make involve reaching out across the lines of differences, and so that we can form more expansive connections. And those human connections, they are built upon empathy, recognition, and also shared humanity. And our collective focus going on should be moving from deficiencies to proficiencies, from weaknesses to strength, and looking at our own abilities and abilities of everybody else, and embracing what it is that can make us a very fruitful group. And some personal reflections I would like to share with you is a bit of my journey. My experiences have been shaped by unique lenses through which I viewed the world. And growing up as a girl with ASD, there was not such diagnosis for people like me, because as we are girls, like, we're expected to behave like Grace Kelly since a young age. And I was totally the opposite of that. And growing up was quite difficult. The world felt overwhelming, quite difficult for me to understand, and with lots to explore as well. And I wanted to do everything. I want to be everything. That's why engineering became the beautiful career for me, because we are not restricted by any field of science. We can do anything. And for me, it was like many of the examples shared here, like being autistic is difficult for me to understand jokes, sarcasm, whether somebody's joking or actually saying something that I don't know. I got in a lot of trouble many times in my life. Funny examples would be when people ask me once in hospital if I heard voices. I say, yes, I do hear voices. But no one said it was voice of people who were not there. I don't know. So it's like more like I needed to understand stuff properly to give an answer. or sending documents around with comments that I had in there for myself that I had to delete and didn't delete and send that to CEO of big corporations. I have done that multiple times. And this kind of things there's this funny side, but there's also the other side that is the vulnerability side of like not understanding if I'm in a dangerous situation, whether I have to leave, what is going on, and not being able to read people's intention is something that was quite difficult for me growing up, especially in a world where women is also the minority, and we are told you have to go out to network, go to those drinking events later, even if you're the only woman, because there's where businesses are closed, the network. And it felt very unsafe for me to put myself into those positions so I wouldn't miss, deals or career prospect. And that was really not a sense of belonging for me. And one of the things that we think about what prevents belonging to happening is the sense of othering. And othering prevents us in building belonging. It happens when we communicate to people that they are not part of our we because of their apparent differences. Othering happens at all levels between two people, at schools, groups, and churches. And culturally, it manifests itself by the one way one perceives the other group, as something missing, as something defective, and ignoring their needs and also the superpowers they might bring. As a neurodiverse person, I experienced othering and unfairness in many circumstances, and I tried to camouflage who I was and trying to fit in, but it never worked. But I was trying to just be part of the we and not be the others anymore. And making a neurodiverse person appear neurotypical in order for them to belong is not something helpful to do, because they might not be able to ask for help in terms of vulnerability, exploitations, or when they are being bullied. And neurodiverse people who are fortunate enough to secure employment often find themselves in that particular box that they don't have much potential for more senior positions, for more responsibilities, or even on the box of it's a liability. That person might become a trouble for the company at some point in time. And that is one of the things that makes us to think about how companies and organizations, they can not put people into those boxes, but do something that will help them to prosper and to create a better environment for every single person to thrive and advance their skills as well. Reflecting on what speakers said today, we should always remember that belonging and having a DEI program is not only about adding someone to a space or to a group. Belonging is not about fitting in or mimicking. It's really about co-creating spaces, co-creating groups, and also institutions, and collectively designing how we can operate for all of us to thrive. Innovation and empathy and creativity, mostly like it comes from part of us that we don't share. And when we take this journey together with trusting each other in their differences and in their talents, we move away from the idea of myself and then to a future of a collective unity that is the we. And then we can move together to create a journey full of remaking and learning as well. And as a member of the Academy DEI committee, I have seen firsthand the impact of DEI and support of the neurodiverse person in organizations, in institutions. And I can really see that it's a journey that we are all together, that we have to break down barriers and foster a culture that not only accept, but celebrate our differences. And the phrase that I really like the most when I tell people is that when you design well for people of all abilities, you design well for everybody else. You just do it once. You design thinking about everybody else, about people with disabilities, people who are neurodiverse. You will design well for everybody else in your company. And we have a call to action for you today here. As our minds go through beyond what we discussed here today, I would like to ask each of you to not confine the insights shared in here today just with you or in the virtual space we created, but really translate inspiration into action. So the Academy can convene fantastic speakers, share this compelling knowledge, but we need everybody to bring those lessons into your organization and start to be part of this force of good to change the way people perceive neurodiverse talents and also embrace them. And what we would like to ask you is to fill out your action plans. Those of you who are here today in person, take a moment to fill out the action plans on your table. And for everybody else watching online, the action plan is available to download from the Academy website, and the link will appear in the chat. You can check that. And also, if you want also to take a look into other resources available in the Royal Academy of Engineering website, that is also going to help you also with filling out the plans that you have in front of you. And share your commitment as well to embrace diversity of thought with your colleagues and friends one-to-one, and use this event as a spotlight for your next team meeting, or share more widely on social media. I founded several ERG groups in all the companies that I worked for, and it might take just like some colleagues having coffee together, talking about their experiences, accommodations that people might have. And honestly, when we talk about accommodations, a lot of people get very, ooh, we might need to retrofit the entire building, it's gonna cost billions. Sometimes just a noise canceling device might be very helpful for somebody with ADHD, and that can be shared across employees. So ERG groups can start as a kind of an organic thing amongst people. We just allow them to take the time to have that 1 hour, a month meeting together. It's just it doesn't have to cost that much. The other thing we want you to take a look into is the infographic and progress. Keep an eye out for the infographic produced by our live scribe. For those here in person, you can view the progress downstairs, and the online participants can expect the infographic to land on your email. It's a visual representation of the strides we are making collectively. And finally, harnessing the power of diverse thought exhibition. So explore the online exhibition, both downstairs and in the conference webpage. It's going to be there for everybody. And it's a showcase of initiatives and insights, and a virtual space where the conversation can continue. In closing today, I really would like to ask you to not forget the ripple effect each one of us can create. Embracing diversity of thought is not just a commitment, it is a journey that requires continuous effort. And as I said to you, it might not be that much effort, especially when people start participating and finding this so useful. And more people are going to embrace, is going to join, and make that to become an example that can serve in other branches of your businesses or in other smaller businesses that you are a member of. And let's carry the torch of inclusion forward, lighting the path for those who will follow on our footsteps. Now I will hand over to Rosa, who will provide final instructions and guide us as we move from conversation to action. And I really would like to thank you so very much for being here. And please continue to harness the power of diverse thought in every facet of our professional and personal lives. And thank you so much for coming and attending this event today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larissa, and thank you, Alida, and the panel. You've led an incredible afternoon and really captured the spirit of what we would really love to be able to see as we look to harness the power of diverse thought. So to echo Larissa's thanks, I'd really love to thank you all for coming today. I promise this will be brief. We're nearly there. We've got the final 5 minutes. But before we wrap up the final part of the day, I just wanted to share some final notices. We've mentioned the action plans about 1 million times across the day. We really want you to be able to take something tangible away with you. Please do share with your teams, with your families, with your friends. Let's keep this conversation going. I hope you'll be able to stay and continue the conversation through our networking. We've got our exhibition, which will be downstairs, and for those of you who are online, the networking and exhibition will continue to take place in breakout rooms. So you'll have the opportunity to move into a different breakout room, which will either mirror one of the themes that we've been discussing today, or you'll be able to have a live demo of the Academy's EDI platform, Culture Plus. So this is something that we've been working on for a number of years with the incredible team at the Honeycomb Works, and the platform has been designed to support small and medium organisations to really be able to harness the power of diverse thought, to really think about how they can build inclusive inclusive cultures across their organisations and provide the wraparound support needed for those organisations. So there'll be a live demo online and downstairs for those in person, and you'll be able to really engage with that, as well as being able to connect with others too. To those here at the Academy, the exhibition will take place downstairs. There will be some fizz and afternoon tea, set to the soundtrack of the fantastic Ramon, the UK's leading flamenco guitarist and composer. You may have been hearing him throughout the day. Research has shown that novelty can help to bond and connect disparate groups as well. And so we have some real novel treats downstairs for you to help you break down any awkward networking barriers. So, following today, we will be sharing a feedback form, the link to which will come through an email for those who are in the room and will be in the chat for those of you who are online. I cannot share with you enough how important it is that you fill out that feedback form. We read every single comment, and it allows us to be able to make these events really engaging and what they've become today. For example, the micro talks were actually a suggestion that came through last year, where we had a few comments which said, actually, we really want to hear directly from organisations sharing their projects. And so without that, the diversity of thought that comes through the feedback forms, we're not able to continue to innovate and create these events into something that's going to be really useful for you. So please do take 5 minutes to share your thoughts. As has been mentioned today, the Academy will be continuing its focus on harnessing the power of diverse thought throughout the year. Please do keep an eye out for more events and programmes. In the summer, we'll be launching our new research on the business benefits of EDI in engineering. This research will demonstrate how more inclusive and diverse businesses can benefit from better staff satisfaction and retention through to more inclusive engineering solutions and access to funding. It's going to be an incredible read. Please do look out for that and join us as we share more. Our Graduate Engineering Engagement Programme, or GEEP, which supports students from underrepresented backgrounds in engineering to be able to transition into engineering employment, is building in more opportunities for diversity of thought by providing EDI training to companies and providing structured opportunities for students to be able to feed into the creation of recruitment and retention practices. We're opening applications for new employers in the spring and would love to have you as part of the programme. It's a fantastic way to be able to showcase your brand, to be able to connect with the engineers of the future, the not too distant future. They are about to graduate. And also to really think about how you can be showcasing your organisation in a way that, and the support that you provide in a way that resonates with early career engineers. In the meantime, we would really love for this conversation to continue. So please do stay in touch and let us know if there are any insights that arise as a result of today through your work. Finally, it's time for some huge thank yous to Simon and our fantastic production team. Thank you so much. You have done a stellar job and it's really great to work with you. Our sign language interpreter, David, who came in at the very last minute, a huge thank you to you as well. Our scribes, and please do check out the progress of the scribes when you go downstairs and on the video as well. They have been watching the live feed, and what they've created so far at lunchtime was incredible. I cannot wait to see the finished thing. So thank you to our scribes. Elena and the events team, you are wonderful and have helped to keep the day going. The D&I team for all of your support, thank you. And especially Isabel, getting emotional, because you have put your heart and soul into today and it's really, really paid off. All our speakers, our panelists, our innovators, you are phenomenal. We cannot have an event like this without you. To be able to, for you to come up here and absolutely share your thoughts and be vulnerable in this space is what makes these events incredible. And our audience, thank you so much for coming here today, for being online, for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Please do take your actions back with you, share with others in your network and engage with us across the year. thank you once again for joining us today. I very much look forward to connecting with you over networking a little bit later. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks.